Welcome to today's webinar, the second one in our series of cybersecurity webinars. And we talk about cybersecurity in electrification and automation for power systems. Today, we are going to focus on the cybersecurity with a SICAM A8000 device. And it's part of a secure substation. Some of you might already know me, at least if you joined the first webinar around the cybersecurity series or one of the other electrification and automation webinars. I am still Michaela Mönikes and guiding you through this webinar today. We want to make this a vivid webinar. We want to make you part of the webinar. All right, you cannot ask your questions audible, but there is the questions field in the upper right corner. And there we invite you to type in your question during the presentation, and then I can access your questions via the questions field, and I will be your voice after each of our breaks we have during the presentation. So we will have, I think, at least 3 blocks for question and answers planned for you. But it will not be me answering the questions, it will be the experts that you're allowed to ask. So I'm happy to welcome my dear colleagues here in the studio. First is Georg Merkel, he's here with me in the studio, and my dear colleague François Simon. You might already know him from the first webinar around cybersecurity. Hello. And they both are definitely experienced protection and control engineers with a deep cyber technology or cybersecurity knowledge. So I already mentioned we have 2 breaks in the agenda. We will have 3 question and answers round. You will be asked a few times, I hope, because we will see your questions in the questions field. And I think now you are curious to start in the security with a SICAM A8000, the RTU in the secure substation. So Georg, the stage is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Monica. Okay, again, welcome to the webinar for cybersecurity in electrification and automation for power systems. Our topic for today is cybersecurity in SICAM A8000 for automation engineers. The presentation will give you the possibility to understand the 3 main security features recommended for substation automation and protection systems. And this is security event logging or syslog, role-based access control with central managed users, and secure communication. My intention is to give you a guidance in activation of security features in SICAM A8000, SICAM Grid Pass, and SICAM Pass. First, I will introduce the devices in the substation environment. Then I will talk about syslog protocol used to transport logging information via IP. After that, I will explain in a simple way how TLS is used for encryption and authentication in the internet and in private IP networks. Part 4 is related to role-based access control, RBAC, with lightweight directory access protocol, LDAPs. The S stands here for secure or SSL. Finally, the last topic will be show how configure the encrypted ISC 61850 MMS communication in SICAM A8000 together with SICAM Pass. From cybersecurity point of view, SICAM A8000 remote terminal units are an integral part of a secure substation. Maybe you already heard about secure substation blueprint. We in Siemens, we focus on cybersecurity standard ISC 62443 as security standard for any kind of automation and protection systems. Accordingly, we validated with TÜV Süd best practice architecture for substation automation. This includes the aspects such as network segmentation, access control, and account management, logging, and others. The architecture is based on a zoning concept where systems with the same security requirements are grouped into a so-called zone. Trusted zone with highest requirements for automation and protection functionality. the DMZ, demilitarized zone for management functionalities. Here we have the service PC and servers such as syslog, domain controller, SICAM grid path, our certificate manager. The untrusted zone is the communication network outside the substation. All inbound and outbound communication is controlled by a firewall with deep packet inspection and intrusion detection functionality. The components and functions of a secure substations are the SICAM SEC as a substation control center and human-machine interface, in short HMI. Then we have SICAM PAS or PQS as power automation and power quality system. Then we have our SICAM A8000 as modular device for telecontrol and automation applications. Then we have here our cProtect 5 for protection, automation, and monitoring functions. Then we have our RuggedCom Ethernet switches for data transport within a zone. And important time server to synchronize all components with accurate time signals. Service PC for substation automation and engineering and management tasks. Important now, we have our syslog server for centralized logging of messages and alarms. Then we have Active Directory server for domain user management. Then we have our great SICAM grid path as certification authority or subordinate certification authority for certificate management. And then we have RuggedCom routers and firewalls with deep packet inspection and intrusion detection functionality. Okay, from a cybersecurity point of view, remote terminal units and automation systems must be considered an integral part of a secure substations, as I mentioned already. At Siemens, we also focus on standards, and one of them is the ISC 62443 standard, the cybersecurity standard for any kind of automation, protection systems, and remote terminal units. According to these requirements, we validated with the TÜV a best practice architecture for substation automation. This includes the aspects such as network segmentation, access control and account management, logging, and others. Today, I will cover some aspects that are specifically relevant for cybersecurity of this automation and control systems. At the end, the goal is to have measures to ensure the availability and integrity of the overall substation. That is why we also will learn for each feature the interaction with the devices. So, security logging. Security logging for protection, control, automation devices, as well as communication systems will interact with the so-called syslog server and further seen, this is a security information and event management system. Then we have our access control. The remote terminal units will interact here with a so-called Active Directory, and this is managing the users and roles and passwords. Then we have here our certificate manager. The authentication and secured communication, we need to create a so-called certificate with SICAM grid path as a certificate manager. Okay. Our SICAM or cProtect systems have already integrated cybersecurity features. Some of these features, like firewall and software signatures, are inbuilt, but many have to be activated or filled in the system with interworking to other systems. As a first feature, our firmware is signed with a Siemens certificate, and this is a main protection feature against manipulation. Security logging needs to be enabled in the device, but it is working together with a syslog server via this syslog protocol. Role-based access control with a central user management is also a feature which works in combination with an active domain controller. Secure protocols like TLS or ESD must also be seen in combination with other communication partners or server applications like SICAM Grid Pass providing certificates. Then we have here firewall and VLANs applications where we can separate, permit, or restrict complete system traffic types. SICAM Grid Pass is a great piece of software what we have, which provides and certificates according to standard X509 to TLS-based applications within a complete customer network. So today we will look a bit more into security logging, role-based access control with central user management, secure protocols, and certificate management with SICAM Grid Pass. Okay, let's continue. Logging of events is paramount when security incidents have to be investigated. With a central event logging, events of all systems can be correlated and a deep analysis of an incident is possible. Syslog is an important IP-based protocol to transport event management from devices to a so-called Syslog server. Let us jump directly to this logging and monitoring. By default, security-relevant logs are stored locally on the device itself. In addition, these logs can also be sent to a central Syslog server using this Syslog protocol. In this example, shows a field engineer who is logging in an A8000 device. This will immediately create a log message which will be sent to a Syslog via Syslog protocol to a Syslog server. The Syslog server collects and stores the security-relevant logs from all components in a system, including firewall logs and Windows logs. Log messages can be opened and read, and detailed information can be seen. In addition, these log messages can be correlated with other informations in an security event and monitoring system for further analysis to detect suspicious activities. The theme is on raise alerts in case of suspicious activities, for example, unplanned configuration changes in a SICAM A8000. So let's now look how logging is easily activated with SICAM Device Manager. So here we enter now the SICAM Device Manager. In SICAM Device Manager dashboard, the setting for Syslog can be found under the Security button. Within Security, select here Remote Security Logging to configure Syslog client settings. So under Device, Name and Syslog prefix, select Yes to activate the Syslog. Under Log Level, select your required minimum log level. Default setting is here warning, which means that warnings, alerts, and errors will be sent to a Syslog server. As protocol, you can select UDP or TLS. Standard setting is here UDP. TLS would be possible when a Syslog server would support the encryption of Syslog messages via TLS. Under Configuration Syslog Server, press the Add button to open the configuration parameters for Syslog servers. So input the settings to reach the Syslog servers, like UDP port 514 is the Syslog per default, and also IP address and the LAN interface via which you reach the server. So now we save and we continue with the next slide. And then we can upload the configuration to the RTU. And now we do a practical example with my colleague, François. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Georg. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So I need to logging first to my PC. One moment, please. And on my PC, I have here like the engineering system in Secure Zone, and I'm connected to here to my SICAM RTU, the SICAM A8000. So this model is the CP8050. It's a CPU with a power supply and here some IOs. So for first, we are here on the engineering PC where we have here our SICAM device manager as shown by Georg before. The settings for syslog you will find under security, and under security here we have the first one is a remote security logging, and we already have configured and loaded this to the device to see the name of the device, to have the warnings and the alerts, and we do it via the protocol UDP. And on the same PC here on my IP241, I have here so-called visual syslog server that is running here in the background, what we see it here. So, and if now we log with our SICAM device manager online view or the SICAM web, so here we will see then, let me open here this in parallel, and normally when I'm logging here with a user, for example, the user Max, I have already is running with role-based access control, and Max has the maximum of permissions. And when I'm logged in with this user, then I will see in my, sorry, here, entry here, yes, exactly this one. So the message is a warning, and with this warning, I see exactly here the time here of this webinar and which device, and that the remote user Max have logged in successfully, and which this way with the SICAM web tool. So that we can also see create some syslog message when we are logging, for example, with another user. First log off and log in again. For example, here another user called the engineering NG. So we will see that it works, and that is again a user with creating warnings. Here we see that, and but now let us make it a wrong password for NG. One time we create here a wrong password. So you see here, and the last entry is in red here with this tool. You see that this is an alert that the logging is failed via SICAM web. And you can also get other of same syslog information. Let me try to logging much more time. And also here, if you try to log here 5 times as a wrong, it's like an attack. So you will see here a lot of such kind of entry, and one of them is that the user ng is blocked. Another information also, let me logging again with Max, which also have the security administration permissions. What we also can see in the web UI, the SICAM web, is that under diagnostic, you also can see this same syslog messages under security syslog, what is inside the device. You see that this device have also logged all this security message. You have a place of for 8,000 log message. Here's the last what we see, and you can scroll through them. But this device have already 8,000 information, and you also can, if you do not have the possibility to have a central syslog system, you can also export these informations in a CSV file. And yes, so that was a short overview, a live overview, what kind of syslog message this system send over syslog, but also store locally inside the device.
Okay, thanks a lot, François. Great presentation.
Welcome.
Thank you. Then let's move on. So next slide, I come to the summary just a minute. Okay, here's a summary of syslog. The syslog is very simple to activate in our devices. It is also easy to test. Syslog is actually extremely important for cybersecurity in substations because actually in case of an attack, we can here easily analyze quickly who, what, and when was happening something. Typically, an attacker will work invisible. A syslog is actually the protocol with which we can bring light to see what was happening. And actually, this is the reason why it is highly recommended by ISC 62334. Syslog can also be encrypted via TLS, as recommended also by ISC 62351. So we are finished here, but now let's move to the next important topic, and this is the basics for encryption and with TLS. TLS, transport layer security, is this next point of our agenda. We want to introduce transport layer security with and the certificates. TLS stands for Transport Layer Security and is actually the IT standard for secure communication with certificates. TLS is very secure as it uses a very deep encryption, for example, 2048-bit. And that is actually also the reason why it is recommended in ISC 62443 and ISC 62351 for our utility networks. In this slide, I will explain the basic principle how TLS is working in the public internet with a web server. TLS in public internet uses certificates from public certification authorities like Amazon Web Services. Amazon Web Services sells, assigns server certificates and delivers it together with its public root certificate to the web server. Amazon root certificate is also in the client web browser pre-installed, and during connection establishment, the web client can authenticate the web server based on pre-installed CA root certificate and the signature pattern of the web server certificate. And a secure HTTPS connection via TLS can be established. So how we can see this? Let's move to a web browser to find information about the certificate. When we click with the mouse to the small lock in the browser URL, a small field in the message "Connection is secure" opens. When we click to this message, we will get the information if the certificate is valid. We can also find out the issuer and the validity of the certificate. So in this slide now, I'm going to explain the principle of how TLS is working with Siemens GridPass as a private certification authority together with SICAM A8000 and SICAM Web. So SICAM A8000 will be securely accessed here in this example via a secure TLS connection from an engineer web browser. So SICAM GridPass, we provide a really flexible and cost-effective private certification authority and certificate manager with many functions. SICAM GridPass works here as a certification authority, EST server, enrollment via secure transport server, and TLS server, transport layer security server, and it generates the following certificates. It generates a root certificate, which has to be loaded to SICAM A8000 and to a web client browser. Siemens GridPass also supports automatic cert renewal via EST protocol, enrollment via secure transport. For this, an EST client certificate needs to be loaded to A8000. A TLS server certificates need to be loaded as well to SICAM A8000. During the web establishment, the web client can securely authenticate the SICAM A8000, and based on the loaded root certificate, a secure pattern in SICAM A8000 web server certificate, the connection can now be established. So in this slide, we see the dashboard of our SICAM Web. And here on this slide, when we click to the browser URL, we can also check the SICAM A8000 certificate. It has here a validity and the connection is secure. When we click to the certificate, we can display it and the issuer and also again the validity. So what can we do now with certificates in TLS or utility networks? And this is really a lot. Actually, a lot of TLS applications are possible with SICAM A8000 with certificates from SICAM GridPass. This webinar is now for SICAM A8000, but we can do similar applications in CProtect 5. Automatic certificate enrollment via secure transport. This is this EST protocol, and actually thousands of A8000 devices we can transport here certificates. Secure access to SICAM A8000 via web browser is possible. Secure access to SICAM A8000 via SICAM Device Manager. Secure remote access to authenticate an engineer on site to a domain service and accessing the network here. Secure transport of syslog messages. Secure ISC 61850 MMS data transport between SICAM A8000 and CProtect 5. Secure ISC 61850 MMS or also T104 or DNP3I data transport between SICAM A8000 and SICAM Pass to a control center. Okay, maybe you have already now questions. Please feel free to ask.
Thank you too, for the first start into this webinar. There are already some questions, and let's see. I do not want to spill water on the boxes. Better not. Or just throw something down. And yes, we received a lot of questions concerning recording and things like that. Yes, we do record the session and you will get access to it, either via email invitation or just use the registration link we just had. You just used to take part in this webinar. But let's jump into the questions. There are some concerning you and some that I can even answer, because ME wants to know, the question is a bit far away from the webinar, and it is, what courses and trainings do I need to be a high-quality substation design engineer? That's a perfect question, because we have our Power Academy, the Power Training Academy within Siemens, and there you can book a lot of courses, and there you receive certificates if you do the courses, the trainings, and the tests. That differs from this kind of webinar, because here we just deliver information and hope that you find it useful. And then let's see, the next one goes for in the grid control level. Okay, it came in from AIL, the question. In the grid control level, whereas some substations might not be Siemens system, how could we integrate the system into the client certificate manager?
Yes, Monica, since I can answer, actually, we are working to open standards, IEC standards 62351, and when also other systems support the standards, then we can also issue a connection to them. And also, when you see these certificates which were generated from SICAM Grid Pass, they are actually working to this X509 standard. This is an open standard, a typical standard what we use also on the internet. This means also certificates from Grid Pass can be loaded to other vendor devices.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And next one came in from ST. Can security logging also be activated to the CProtect 5 devices? I think we've had that in the first webinar, right?
Yes, that in the first webinar. I demonstrated that in the first webinar with for protection engineer, where the focus was for CProtect 5, and there is similar as in our tool like SICAM Device Manager. There we have the DXI5 engineering tool, where we also can activate the syslog messages and to be sent to a syslog server.
And if I remember it correctly, you showed a bit of that in the last webinar, so it makes sense to answer this question, how to activate the syslogging in the CProtect 5. Just watch the recording of the first webinar. I think we've had it somewhere in February, the 7th of February, I guess it was, but it's on the registration page. So, and EM wants to know, is syslog mandatory, or can I disable it if the customer doesn't want it?
Yes. May I answer the question? I mean, syslog can also deactivate it, but it is highly recommended to do this because it gives a lot of help and is something what really ensures that you can analyze after some behaviors what was actually happening. So it is really recommended also by the standard IEC 62443 that we do this. And also you can transport it in a safe way from our A8000. But to answer the questions, you can activate or deactivate it, but we recommend to activate it.
Okay, keep it there for security reasons. All right. And next question came in from MB. Where can we get the syslog server? I think we also had this question in the first webinar, right?
Yeah, it's
always an interesting one. It's a good one.
Only here for the demonstration, I put here a freeware on my PC to practice that. But normally, when our secure substation blueprint, we recommended to install there the NX log as the central system, because this tool can collect not only from the CProtect, from the A8000, but also from the PC, the Windows logs. Yeah, all the piece in the secure substation can send syslog messages, and a tool like NXlog, what we recommend in our engineering for secure substation. There you can put all the messages in this syslog server.
Okay, thanks a lot for this comprehensive answer. And thanks for the question.
Yep.
And ST wants to know, are the internal logs erased with, for example, a firmware update of the SICAM A8000? Oh, that's an interesting one. Will I lose some information?
I can say no, they are not interacting with the firmware update. I do a firmware update yesterday, and the syslog, what I show you in the device, are still present.
Perfect. So no data lost just because of an update. We keep it there. And well, can I erase such a log?
You have to go to the complete reset the device with a so-called default settings, or
okay.
Yeah.
So it's then really throwing away everything, right?
Everything, also your configuration.
Or better not.
Yeah, I do not want to do it. No.
Yeah. And next question came in from CB. Where do I have to install the GridPass software? Do I need an extra server PC in the network, or can it go on any other PC?
Yes, I mean, GridPass is actually quite a small software package. It is not too big. You can install it on a server, a Windows Server 2019, and you can also operate it in a virtual machine.
Oh.
This means you do not spend the money for an extra server, for extra server hardware. You can run it in a virtual machine where you have an existing server. So this is what we're actually doing with our PCs also. Here, our training labs, everything is running on a virtual machine, running on the basis of Windows 2019, and then you can operate it even.
Okay,
yeah.
So I do not necessarily have extra server PC hardware, but I definitely need a server to run the software, right?
Right. You need the software with Windows Server 2019 or later.
Yeah, fully understood that. And ST wants to know, the questions continue. Do Dixie or SICAM PQS have support for the syslog monitoring of user activities?
Yes, you have some syslog message, but this syslog message are Dixie is running on a Windows PC, so this message are in this Windows event message log system. So it's inside the your Windows event.
Oh, okay.
So,
yeah.
And this event from your Windows syslog, you can put it also, send it also to, for example, the NX log can also collect this information from your Windows event log.
Collect the information and put it into a different place, like a copy then, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And the other part of the question was around SICAM PQS?
It's the same.
Okay.
It's also the software running on a Windows PC, and
so we have the messages there in there. So the messages are there; they are logged, and we can copy them if we want, depending on the configuration, I guess. And next one came in from GP. If the Ethernet connection is not available for some time, will the syslog messages be lost, or will they be transmitted after the connection is established again?
The messages are lost.
Okay, if the connection is lost, the message is lost.
Yeah, so if the device send it directly outside, and if the syslog server is not available,
then it's gone.
But you can set a second syslog server.
So if the server is not reachable, and I should have a second connection there, and if no network connection is there, no chance of sending any information, then I will receive other messages, I guess, right?
Yeah.
If my network is down. All right, thank you. And
as the fallback is you have it also inside the device. So if you really want to know during this time what was lost, you go, you log to your device, as I show you, and there under diagnostic you can take a look on the syslog message, what is inside the device if there was not sent. during this
Okay,
time.
so they are not really lost. They are
No,
not sent,
no.
and they will not be resent, but they are still accessible in the box.
Yeah, only the telegram what is spontaneously sent is lost.
Yeah, that's lost.
Okay, but
Okay.
you have the same message in your device.
Oh, perfect. So it's not that lost that I feared with the first time of the answer, first part of the answer.
Yeah.
Thank you for the clarification. And then next question is wants to know, I think we almost had an answer to that right now. Is it possible to create a grid path server on an engineering VM virtual machine, or does it have to be a separate virtual machine? And if we work on a system of several substations connected to the power utility network, is it possible to have only one grid path server?
I mean, it's a good question. Actually, you can operate grid paths together with other systems on a virtual machine. The thing is only when grid path is an extremely important thing. You have here a certification authority. So our recommendation is to put it really on a separate server. Even it's working to have it on a server where other systems are installed. But the problem is when you have a problem on this PC, you lose your certification authority. And we have a big issue because then you have to modify or have to change the certificates in the network. So we recommend to do this on a separate virtual machine. And actually what we can do is actually to operate Siemens grid path, SICAM grid path from a central server, from a control center, you can do this. And to have in the substation, let's say a subordinate CA, certification authorities, this is also possible to have here different structures of SICAM grid path establishment. To answer the question clearly, you can do this also from a central control center onwards. The thing is only you have to clearly see what is happening when you have an interruption to the substation. And these are things we can help. And we can design for you also a network. We can give you advice where is the best possible situation or placement of a SICAM grid path server.
To make the system as secure as possible, not only with security like hacking, like the cybersecurity, but also fail-safe for the boxes, the machine itself.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
And then we have to design in the engineering phase where to place a SICAM grid path in where is the best position for this.
Thank you. Oh, yeah, that's interesting. BK wants to know, have you ever had any hacking problems with this product? And I think we tried to hack it, right? That's why we pay money for trying to hack into the system.
Yes, on an operational system, we do not have hacking problems, but there are lot of research institutes that where the specialists to make so-called penetration tests. So they take this kind of device and try to make all these attacks what is possible over the IP network. So clear. Not only we make such kind of attack to see if it really hardens the system, but also other research people or institute make such kind of penetration tests.
I think that's part of the certification of the system, right?
Yes,
That we pass these penetration tests. Yeah, thanks a lot. And then the question from FL. Can configuration changes that are done in the system, can they also be logged in syslog?
Yes, the configuration changes are also logged in the syslog, but there's only a message to say, okay, some new configuration has been loaded. So you have not a history in the syslog of every change in the in the device. So it's to inform that some configuration was basically changed, so a SIEM system or a central system. Okay, someone do something, but it's not there. The logbook of what the engineering change.
Okay, no detailed information.
No detail.
Okay, yeah, but I guess
and
that's
it's also not good
right?
to give too much detail, because then a hacker can exactly know what happens.
That's true. One thing is this configuration of the box, the protection algorithms we want to monitor, and the other one is who's doing the work there. And that's the important thing around cybersecurity, right? And the other one is the grid security. And now there's a vocabulary in it which I never heard before, but I hope my experts know, because WS wants to know which cipher suites does the SICAM A8000 support?
Cipher suites.
Cipher suites, yes.
Okay, yeah. So you see, they both know, and I will learn.
We support Cipher Suite for TLS version 1.2 and for version 1.3.
Okay.
So and then you have to go to the description of TLS, what kind of Cipher Suite are supported, but we also have it in our cybersecurity manual of the device. We also have a list of the Cipher Suite that are supported.
Oh, perfect. So with the answer, you will probably just send the link to the manual, right?
Yes.
Because, oh yeah, I did not mention yet that all the questions you put in, even if we will eventually not be able to answer all of them, you will receive an answer, because the expert will get homework and they need to answer your questions in a written form afterwards, and we will distribute that also. But let's continue on the Audible side right now. ST wants to know, how can the syslog be activated in the power quality meter Q100? Oh, that's one of the products down there. I hope you know.
Oh, long time that I got this time of device on my lab. So
maybe an answer for later.
An answer for later. Yes.
Yeah,
I
just to be on the safe side that it's
from this device,
correct, right?
Yes,
yeah, okay.
Where to set this.
So, and the next one is a question is referring to one of the first slides. There was an overview of substation shown. And there's a local server on the station level for RBOC, syslog, etc. Mm-hmm. Is it possible to use a central server instead of in every station? This should minimize equipment on station level. And what are the pros and cons?
Yes, I mean...
oh, that's the structure you mentioned, right?
This is for grid pass, yeah. Actually, you can do, this means from a central side. The thing is, our recommendation would be really to make this on our substation itself, even if it's just one server, because you have to always consider what happens when substation is not connected. When you do this in a redundant basis, is of course fine, but we always have to see what is the best availability structure of such a substation. And according to this, we have evaluated to do this in a DMZ, demilitarized zone, to establish the servers. Then you have here locally on the site all these servers for Active Directory, also for syslog there is a server, and we have then all the messages stored, even you lose the connection to the substation. Oh, but nevertheless, to answer the question clear, it's possible to do this from a central site.
Okay, and depending on the case, we might suggest a solution like this with a decentral one or a solution with a central one, and then redundancy to be on the safe side.
Right. This is also possible in an engineering phase to evaluate together with the customer what are the pros and cons, and then we can advise the customer, really, these are the points they can rethink, and then they can place the servers as they like in the network.
So make it the best configuration for each case. Yeah. And then JE wants to know, I've used GridPass for manual certificates issuing, but I find it difficult to set up EST during the product manuals. Are there any videos or resources that show how to implement EST on the A8000 or the CProtect 5 from the scratch?
Yeah. I mean, a good reason to stay longer in this webinar, because we show this today. Perfect. This is part of our presentation. This will be a long session for today, but we will show this for SICAM A8000, SICAM Pass, how to create certificates and establish it via EST and transport it via EST to the devices.
So stay tuned for the SICAM A8000. And François, didn't we do this in the first webinar?
Yeah, we do that also in the first webinar for Cyprotec 5. There you also can see the settings, what you have to do to connect Cyprotec 5 via EST.
So the short answer is yes, there are videos. One is already there, the recording of the first cybersecurity webinar, and one is in production with this webinar. So I think we take one last question and then we go into a short bio break for ears and eyes and things like that. Last question for this round. KA wants to know, does GridPass have to be permanently available on the network after it has already issued certificates that have already been imported into the devices? For example, an EST communication SICAM pass to the control center.
It's a good question. To answer it clearly, it can also be for some time, for a short time, to be switched off. It does not have to be continuous on the network. There are advantages when it is continuous on the network. You can, let's say, have shorter revocation times, and then you will automatically get here the certificate back. Especially when you consider the structure where we have a root CA centrally in the network and the subordinate CAs in the substation, the root CA can be then switched off for some time already to not endanger this root CA, which is centrally in the network. For a sub CA, it says, let's say on the substation side, here it's a little bit different. We have to see, sure, you can have it for some time switched off. It does not have to be operated or online all the time. But let's say you have to consider this in the engineering phase. How long are your certificate times, the revocation and such things? When you do revocation quite often, then it's better to leave it on, because then revocation lists are distributed to the network, let's say online. You don't have to wait. So we have to evaluate this on a case-by-case basis in the network, but it does not have to be online all the time.
Okay. So in case I need to do some kind of work, whatever on the server, it wouldn't be a big problem for the configuration.
Right. It does not harm the communication of the devices where the certificates are loaded.
Okay. Yeah, talking about service and improvements there in the system, I think we'll do some personal service right now. Enjoy a short break. Give your ears a bit of a rest and your eye too. I think we'll try to get a look outside, whatever the weather is. Give your eyes a bit of a rest, and in about, I think about 10 minutes, we will continue this webinar, and we've already heard we will see how to configure something in the SICAM A8000. Stay tuned. See you in a few minutes.
Thank you.
I think now we are set up again for the next round in this webinar around the digital substation and how to make your substation secure with cybersecurity on the SICAM A8000. And I think the best is not to have me here, just your moderator and your questions tool, but to have our experts back on stage. And I think, Georg, you will start and show something on a how-to, right? It's now a hands-on.
Yes, thank you very much.
Perfect. Let's go.
Okay. Next point of our agenda is I want to introduce a role-based access control with LDAP-S. The S stands actually for secure or SSL. And I'm going back to our, here I'm going back, actually I'm coming back to our SICAM A8000 TSL applications. And we want to show role-based access control with SICAM Device Manager in more detail. This example, actually you see this in yellow now. Here in this slide, we have an engineer. The engineer wants to access SICAM A8000 remotely and shall authenticate to an Active Directory LDAP server. The prerequisites: we need a Windows server with Active Directory, including lightweight directory service, and the engineer role must be configured. SICAM A8000 LDAP must be configured to reach the LDAP server via this IP network. Then we need our SICAM grid path to roll out the certificates, and they are required to be loaded to the Active Directory server. Actually, from SICAM grid path, we need to load the root certificate. Then we need the client certificate inclusive of the role. And we need a server certificate for Active Directory. So in SICAM A8000, we have already certificates from the previous example, but we will further on explain more detail how certificates in SICAM A8000 will be loaded again. Okay, now an example, role-based access via LDAP-S protocol. How does it actually work? So the user with the engineer role requests access to SICAM A8000 with username and password. SICAM A8000 sends an authentication request with user name and password to this Active Directory and negotiates here a TLS tunnel. The Active Directory provides LDAP response, and the user access token is sent back containing the certificate with the user role. And then SICAM A8000 sends a success or a fail response to the user. And the role-based session is now activated or is denied. So how does it work in redundancy? Because we can also have a redundant Active Directory server. SICAM A8000 follows the configuration of an additional LDAP server in case the main Active Directory server cannot be reached. The user with the engineer role requests access to SICAM A8000 with username and password again. SICAM A8000 sends the authentication request with username and password to the main Active Directory and does not get a response. And the SICAM A8000 sends then an authentication request with username and password to the standby Active Directory and negotiates a TLS tunnel. And SICAM A8000 sends an authentication request with username and password to the standard directory. So, and then SICAM A8000 sends the success and fail message to the user. And the tunnel is established. And now let's check what will happen when we don't have Active Directory servers. This means when we don't have here a substation connection. So here again, the engineer sends a request message to a SICAM A8000 with a username and a password. SICAM A8000 sends an authentication request with username and password to the main Active Directory and does not get a response. Then SICAM A8000 sends also the authentication request to the standby and does not get a response. So SICAM A8000 sends a fail response to the engineer. And role-based session is denied via Active Directory. But SICAM A8000 fall back then to the internal administrator role, which is configured. In this case, when no Active Directory is available and logging with local user account would be possible in this case. Okay, now we are coming to the practical part. For this practical part, we presume that the lightweight directory service is already enabled in the Active Directory, and SICAM A8000 has already its server certificate and the CA root certificate installed. The following steps will be required here. We configure role-based access control with LDAP in SICAM A8000 using SICAM Device Manager. Then we create a user certificate for the role engineer in SICAM Grid Path. Then we configure the user in an Active Directory with a certificate created by SICAM Grid Path. And actually, now let's start with the first step in the configuration, and therefore we enter into the SICAM Device Manager. So, slide number 30. So, no, we are here. The settings for role-based access control can be found under the Security button. And within the Security tab, we configure role-based access control. So we select role-based access control, RBAC, to get authentication service. Then we select LDAP-S as role-based access control. Then we select yes to ensure that you log in with local accounts when no Active Directory is available. This is very important. So, and here we have to select a placeholder for the root certification authority. In our case, it will be certification authority 1. So, and now we have to insert here a third string of this Active Directory organizational units where the LDAP users are located. And now let's move to this location. Now we are moving into Active Directory dashboard, to this Active Directory server. So in Active Directory dashboard, select the tools. And we have to select here Active Directory users and computers. Now we come here into the screen. Now we can find the Explorer for Active Directory users and computers. And here the organizational units are already prepared by our admins. So click under Active Directory users and computers, and we select here ISC 62351 and use the right mouse button to open the next selection menu. The properties, and now we have to choose the attribute editor. We select here the distinguished name. We press on View. And we copy paste the value, which you see here, and close everything and go back to our SICAM Device Manager. So now we are back in SICAM Device Manager. And now we insert the copied string here in the settings, in the search string. So under LDAP server configuration, click on Add button to open the device configuration. And the possible redundant LDAP servers can be added here if necessary. So, and we can select now a LAN interface to reach the Active Directory. Here we can also set the IP address of this Active Directory LDAP server. And now we can select here our certificate authority. And now we can also set here a password policy. That means the maximum attempts, consecutive time, blocking time, and so on. And you can set your password settings, let's say lengths, etc. And now we save the configuration. So, and actually in the main dashboard, the configuration to SICAM A8000. And now we have saved, and now we are uploaded. And we have now a practical example. This means we are finished. And how to create now the user for role-based engineer in SICAM GridPath. This is the second step. Let's move to our certificate manager, SICAM GridPath. In the main dashboard of SICAM GridPath, we select certificates. And now it opens the next screen. In the certificates lab, click here this Add Certificate button. Under point 1, select certificate profile. Select here certificate without extended key usage. Then we go to the next step. Under point 2, define a certificate settings. Click here the issue, certification authority, in our case CA124. Insert here common name, engineer 01. And here you can select the country code, and let's input the remaining settings by default, and we click here next. So in the next setup point, assign roles and area of responsibility. So, and this is now something important. We stay here for a moment because you can see here a lot of roles, and these roles are actually, according to the ISC 62443 standard, predefined in SICAM GridPath. And these are actually the roles which define the rights of the users. And actually what we have to set here, we select the actual role of the engineer for role-based access, and we select here engineer. And now we have to insert here a string, which is *remote, and we have to press the plus. And now this *remote appears in the selected items. So, and now something important, area of responsibility on the right-hand side. Check please if only one engineer is there. When another role from maybe a previous input would appear here, delete this input. Okay, now we continue with the next step. Here you can define the validity. In our case, we have here 1 year, and this is okay for this example, for this client certificate. And now we go to the next step. Okay, we are now here under point define CRL, certificate revocation list point. And here we set automatic. And then we press the plus button here, and then the brackets appear also in selected item fields. And then we move to the next setting. And here under point 6, the assign key type and key parameters, you can set different keys, and you can select here ECC or RSA. Here in our example, we use RSA. And also you can set here different key parameters, let's say 1024, 2048, 4096, and so on. These are possible, but 2048 is fine. And we press here OK. And then actually the certificate is ready, is created. Then we move to the next slide, and this is here under certificates. We can now download the created certificate. What we do? Select the certificate. Now we press the export certificate button. In our case now, we have to select the certificate as a DER file. And now we can export the certificate, and the certificate is downloaded and can now be found in the download directory of our Windows File Explorer. So the certificate is created, and now we need to copy this certificate to this Active Directory server. We copy it. Going back to our practical example, the next step is now configure the user in an Active Directory with a user certificate created in SICAM Grid Path. Now we are moving into our Active Directory server. We select here in the dashboard again, users and computers. And now it opens the Explorer for users and computers, and we click with the right mouse button to the organizational unit ISC 62351 and move to the new user. So fill now the fields for the new user. And remember, of course, this user login name and login to SICAM Web. So now we can select a password here and confirm the password. Then we can check the input again. And now we can finish this setting. So the user, in our case, NG, is now created. And in the next slides, we will load now the created certificate to this user. So again, double click to the created user NG. The NG properties appear now, and select here now property certificates, and click here to this Add from File button. And now it opens here an Explorer. Here we can select this certificate file, continue to open this file. And now we are coming to the properties of the user engine, are opening again here, and the certificate file can now be seen. And we just need to press now OK to load the certificate to the user, to load the certificate file to the user. So now we are finished to test if the login for NG works from our A8000. And now we are moving back to our SICAM web. And we log in via the SICAM device manager to this login page now. Thank you. And now we are coming to my colleague, François, who will give you a short presentation, a short live demo, how this works.
Yeah, thanks. So I'm back for the demo. Let me log in again. So yes, as explained in the slide, the role-based access control topic is, we can find it under security. Under security, I already have here to select the role-based access control. And here already, here's authentication service is LDAP-S, but Radius is also possible, for example. But here we are on LDAP-S. And as explained, also we have to set the fallback to yes, because then if we do not do that, then we have problems with our LDAP server. We are not able to connect to our device. And as explained, you have the user root CA, and here it's more or less the placeholder that you have in your device. So before, via the web UI, you have put here under this placeholder under the root CA, so that we can see if you go into our device via the SICAM web and connect here, like already shown, for example, the user ng that already have been configured with a role engineer. I can navigate as engineering. I can see settings for cybersecurity settings, so I can look what is inside my certificate. And for example, here in my device, under certificate authority, the placeholder 3 is this CA124, what is used when I receive a user certificate, but also when the LDAP-S communication is established. So that I have created in my grid path and loaded here to my SICAM A8000. So that was for this setting. So, and I also have to copy paste or to write in this search string. So remember, this search string is, in my example, I have here my LDAP server, my Active Directory server. This is here on the second virtual machine, here on the server 219. I have to log in to this one, and there you can see under, remember, under here, manage server manager, under tools, Active Directory, user and computers. Here on this level, remember, click on properties, attribute editor, and then you here found here this so-called search string. So that is already in my settings for the CP8050, and that is all what I have to set here. And I have one LDAP server that I have added here, and the IP address of this Windows server domain controller here 240 have to set bin here, and the LDAP during the LDAP handshake, the TLS handshake, I will check that on my domain controller, the LDAP server send a certificate that was signed with this CA. Okay, so that was loaded onto the device. So we have seen that it works, and we will show again how to create a user with SICAM grid path. Please here, okay, here my SICAM grid path is running, and now I will create a certificate, a user certificate for a user. As explained before, I have to click on Add Certificate and select here the type. The type is so-called without extended key usages. And then I will be guided automatically. The issuer, what I need is already selected, if you have to do that before. And for example, let us create a user certificate for a role security administrator. And only to enter here this name. And now here, remember the important part. You see no area of responsibility is set here under subject. So I can select the corresponding role as it is recommended in the IC 62351-8. And for example, let us use a security administrator and add here the key with plus, and you will see here your guidance inside the SICAM grid path. The UI is really comfortable. You already see here what is added to this certificate for the user. And only stay with the validity, and CRL can be put if necessary, as explained here with the automatic part. And so you can also use this RSI key type, and now you get your user certificate. You can also here, if you have to get an overview, okay, you have here your certificate for the user where the role are, for example, security administrator or engineer or administrator. And this you can export then and import into your domain controller. I already have do that. So the copy paste. So let me create here a new user. This is either like that on this level. You select here new, go to user, and let us put here the SecAdmin 2 as for example, and put it here also the logging name. And in the next step, you have to enter the password for this user, so centrally, not for each device, inside each device, one time centrally here. And click on next, and now this is created. So SecAD2 is created, but remember, now I have to attribute to them here the certificate, what you can do with here, add from file. And here, for example, in your said, okay, here it's a role, user role, security administrator, what you have copy paste from your SICAM grid path, and apply. And now I must be able to use this SecAD2 from to log in centrally from my device manager. Here, let us do it here from the SICAM web. Log out from here and log in again here with the name SecAD2 with the password what is centrally managed in the domain controller. Right. Hope I do not make a mistake in my password, but normally, no, I can log in as security administrator, a new role that we have. So, for example, under user, you can see the local user, but also here, the logged in user. I'm here, security AD2 as username, and my role is written there. So, for example, with this role, I have not all the permissions. For example, here, I'm not able to clear diagnostic logs. So this is not possible. I do not have the permission to do that as a user who has only permission to make security administrator tasks. I cannot clear the log for the engineers. Okay. That was for role-based access control in a practical way.
Okay, thanks a lot, François. Great presentation. So let's move on to the summary. Just a moment. Okay, just a moment. We are coming to page number 52, right? Here, a summary of a role-based access control with LDAP. Actually, it is possible to configure a redundant LDAP server in our SICAM A8000. Role-based access control with LDAP is a standard also for cybersecurity for substation and automation systems. So attacker access is blocked after a certain number of unsuccessful login attempts. High availability. We have seen that the fallback measures, let's say also backup servers and local users are possible. That is why also it is recommended by IEC 62443 and IEC 62351-9 defines the protocol LDAP and the roles to improve the interoperability. This means we are interoperable to other systems like Windows. Okay, we are coming now to the questions.
Perfect. Because there are once again a lot of questions. Some still open from the first round, and we will continue the chronological order of them. Let's go. And MZ wants to know, and let's see if we get the question for us here onto our little display that will help you to read the question. And please listen to me and read at the same time and everything like this. Yeah. And yeah, we take the questions part there and go to the kind of the oldest question, and I start with reading it. I think we see now the audience chat. Regie, I think if you move to the questions in the upper corner there, yeah, it looks fine. So MZ wants to know, after logging remotely using Radius, after a few logs, logging is not possible anymore, and a factory reset of the A8000 must be done. Oh, why is that?
Maybe as we see, you have to set the fallback, so fallback to yes.
Okay.
That you can use the local user
fallback layer. Okay.
Yes. If you do that and you do some wrong configuration in your Radius or LDAP server, so
then you're just thrown out, kind of. Okay. So
it's important
probably a
to
misconfiguration, and you will just send the short information there. Thank you. And next one. How do we configure the ETS server? I think we've seen that right now, right?
The EST server, we do not.
ETS,
It's for the next presentation.
Right.
Oh, still to
because
come.
for
LDAP,
we do not need EST, because as the device do not have to have a certificate for the LDAP connection. Only the certificate in the LDAP server. The Cipotec or the SICAM are LDAP client, and they only need to check that the certificate that they receive from the server is known as the CIA is known, and that's all. It's not a mutual authentication, it's only a server authentication.
Oh, okay.
And for that, it makes it a little bit easier, that you do not need, especially a certificate for LDAP via EST.
But maybe we show this in the second example, how to install this EST server in 8000.
Because there, when we are talking about secure communication, in case we have client-server authentication to do, mutual authentication, it's really easier to do that with EST, and that we will show in some minutes.
Once again, stay tuned. And then the next question, I think it's referring to this Windows syslog. So FL, I get the question. FL wants to know how to enable this Windows syslog to transmit the syslog messages to a centralized syslog server.
That is some settings to do with when you have a system like NXLog. There you can define how to connect or to get the syslog message from a Windows system.
Okay.
It's not part here of our presentation, the syslog from a Windows system, but we have also engineering guide when we do a secure substation, where we have to there it's explained how to do that with the tool. It depends on the tool. For example, NXLog, there you can insert also the Windows logs.
All right. So in the written answer, you will probably share the link to the engineering guide and not hide the chapter where it is, but describe that so that it can be easily found, right?
Yeah.
Thank you. And next question. I think we had that already, because Eva wants to know, what if the communication is established? Will the messages that were not transmitted during communication failure be transmitted from the buffer to the syslog server once the communication is established again? And now I try to answer that. The question is, no, it's not. It's buffered in the system, but it's not transmitted, right? Yeah. Okay, because that was already sent out. Yeah. Thanks. So MS wants to know, is unauthorized access to the device to change the configuration or attempt to send an unauthorized command via various protocols such as IC104 logged in the syslog file? So unauthorized access to the device, is that logged?
There is a long list of the syslog message, what is possible from the device. It is in the manual. We have a very long list. Maybe I can check that after that and give you the answer if there are some messages also for unauthorized command for 104.
Okay, so you know a lot, but not every single detail. You know where to find it, right? Perfect. And you will share the knowledge where to find it. That's a long question that came in from JDU. Is the SICAM A8000 a best solution for power generation, maintaining, control of distributed power producers, by ensuring grid stability is becoming increasingly complex. The vast number of distributed power producers calls for new strategies to ensure consistent power quality. That's true. That's why we have these power quality instruments. Identifying, locating, and eliminating disturbances and faults, as well as the flexible, quick balancing of power production and load consumption, require integrated hardware and software solutions that work smoothly together.
It sounds like a wide area monitoring protection system, which we can do with CProtect 5 and a wide area monitoring protection system. Just, I understand the question this way.
Yeah, I think the first sentence is SICAM is the best solution for power generation. Yes, SICAM A8000 is the best solution for.
Yeah, because it's capable of all these jobs there, right?
Yes, for distributed power producer, for balancing of power production, load consumption.
Exactly the job what it's designed for, right?
That is all the automation function what is capable with this device. So we are focusing on the cybersecurity part, but clear this device is one of our best solution for every kind of automation function.
And it can bear a lot of these functions, and if not just at a CPU, right? Yes. And so MS, now that it will become unauthorized. If yes, with what details? That question refers to the one with the unauthorized access. I think you would put that into the answer. Yeah. So, yes, interesting. Yes wants to know what happens if the grid path computer is down. Do the internal communication between the several substation devices will be affected, or will it even stop?
No. No, this is something what we clearly can say, that a grid path computer can also be offline for some time, because you renew the certificates not always all the time. There's some time gap in between. Sure, when certification revocation information goes back to the system, then it must be online. But grid path can also stay for some time switched off. It's not mandatory to have it always online. And this, of course, will also not affect the communication between the devices.
That stays up and running and keeps your system electrically secured, right? It's just if you need access, then you need to identify yourself, right?
Yeah, but the certificate is on,
Yeah. So, and UC wants to know how to secure, I think it's how to secure messages that are not based on TLS as goose or sample values.
For goose and sample values, goose and sample value are the high-speed messages, what is normally inside the secure zone, and there it's the encryption, the additional encryption of this high-speed message, this will make a time delay in this high-speed messages. So if you can, you define your inside your secure zone, where you have your CProtect device sending goose messages there. Don't do it with encryption.
Yeah, because there we are talking about time-critical messages and not security-critical ones, because they are already protected from outside. Like at home, I do not necessarily need to lock my smartphone the whole time because the door is locked. And the same is true for these fast messages, right?
And also for these fast messages, you can create a virtual LAN, so to really only have it inside your small networks that they do not spread anywhere. And this is one of the main security measures to use a virtual LAN also for goose and SMBs.
All right, thank you.
Maybe there is a second scenario where we have to transmit goose messages via a WAN network. This is for wide area protection systems. And then you can encapsulate this in a layer 2 tunnel and then encrypt this. But this is not so time critical as sampled values. And then you have to create a layer 2 tunnel IPsec tunnel in a router and transport it via this wide area network.
Create a secure channel there, like these red telephones we use.
Yes.
But you go outside the
Yeah.
substations where you are not in the secure
No more
zone,
protected,
and
yeah.
there you use a router and such kind of device that are specialized for tunneling and protect such kind of messages.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, good questions. You see,
Right.
a lot of thanks a lot for the quality of questions. It's a lot of. It makes fun to read them because it's a vivid discussion here. Thanks a lot. And we will continue that. ST wants to know if, for example, someone changes the protection settings on a CProtect 5, is there any information, for example, like the laptop device ID, maybe the net address stored in the syslog? So network access locally, probably, right?
As we see, here we are on also for the device. We have seen that everything what we change with the device manager, it's written in the message that it was who was logged and from where. Was written from SICAM web. So and for CProtect 5, it's more or less the same. The IP address of the device of your PC where SICAM Dixie is installed is also written inside the message.
So it is logged.
So you know exactly from which PC, if you know the IP address of your PC, but it's normal that you know that, and so you can identify who and from where you have do some changes.
And now we're coming to hardware. KB wants to know, is it possible to configure a signal to the syslog? For example, digital input as the cubicle door is open.
Right, yeah, this you can do actually. And this is one of the big advantages of our SICAM A8000. You're absolutely flexible to define signals, and even it is possible to define an open door contact, and then you transport it via syslog and have it then in a syslog server. And this is really quite helpful. It's possible.
That's true. Cool. Yeah. Thanks for the question once again. I think we take one last one. A short question. Let's see how long the answer will be. Once the certificate expires, what can we do?
Yes, we reload. And this is also one of the advantages what you have with our SICAM grid pass, because we have this EST protocol, enrollment via secure transport, and then when a certificate expires, it is renewed in the devices. So
the algorithm inside check the validity of the certificate, and sometime before he check, okay, normally I have to renew this certificate, and then he send some days before a new certificate revocation request to the SICAM grid pass, and then SICAM grid pass send back a new certificate with a validity again for 90 days or whatever you have set in the grid pass. In the grid pass, you set the validity of the new created certificate, and then you get the new one.
So if you configure it correctly, it just takes action in advance to not have an expired certificate active, but already have a renewed one there. Okay, thanks. Yeah, let's renew some energy. Let's gain some energy again. We once have again about a 10 minutes break. Give your eyes and ears a bit of a rest, move your body a bit, and then let's meet again into a few systems and jump into the last one of today's webinar around cybersecurity. So stay secure for the next minutes. All right, welcome back. And now let's start into the third part of today's webinar around the secure substation. You already heard a bit about cybersecurity on the device itself, about the syslog, the event logging, and now let's start into the last part. Let's talk about secure communication, and I think the stage is once again open for Georg, because he knows the details.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Michaela. So, last point of our agenda, let's talk about secure communication or encrypted communication as state-of-the-art method for data confidentiality and integrity. Let's coming back here to our application overview. And as a practical part for secure communication, we have the example of secure RTU data transport to control center or to SICAM paths. In this practical part, we cover the following. Implement a secure ISC 61850 MMS communication connection between SICAM A8000 and SICAM paths based on the following. we configure SICAM Grid Pass to generate an EST client certificate and downloaded it also together with the CA root certificate. We configure SICAM A8000 with the CA root certificate and EST client certificate, and then to receive an MMS server certificate via EST. We configure SICAM A8000 as ISC 61850 server for the MMS connection according to ISC 62351-3. And we configure SICAM Pass with the root certificate and EST client certificate to receive MMS client certificate via EST. And then establish a secured MMS connection between SICAM A8000 and SICAM Pass according to ISC 62351-3. Then check the certificates and the connection. So let's start and move now to SICAM Grid Pass to generate an EST client certificate and download it together with the CA root certificate of SICAM Grid Pass. Okay. In the main dashboard of SICAM Grid Pass, we select now certificates, and then we are coming here to the certificates tab, and here we press this add button for the certificate. And under point 1, select certificate profile, we select here TLS client. This certificate will actually be used as an EST client certificate. Press the next step. Then on the next line, under point 2, define certificate settings. We have to insert the issuer name, which is the certification authority name, in our case CA124. Insert the common name for this certificate, and select the country code and let the remaining settings as default, and then we click the next step. In this slide can be left with the default settings here. Click next step. And then we define the availability period of the certificate, define the days, the months, and the years. 1 year is okay for this certificate. Then we click the next step. Then we come to define certificate revocation list distribution point. Here, in our case, we choose CRL distribution point as automatic. We press the plus button. In the field selected item appears then the brackets. Here we click on the next step. Then we, under point 6 now, assign key type and key parameters. You can set here RSA or ECC. In my case, in our case, we can live here with RSA, it's the most common one. Then we can, as a key parameter, we can select 1024, 2048, or 4096 is possible. In our case, 2048 is okay. And then we press here the OK button, and the certificate is actually created in SICAM Grid Pass. And now let's move to the dashboard in Grid Pass to select the certificates. And here we can select now the generate certificate. And we press now the export button to download the certificate. So here now the export screen appears where we can set different types of files. In our case, we need a P12 file, and therefore we need also to set the PIN, and we need to confirm the PIN. And then we click here the OK button, and then the certificate file is downloaded into Windows. In Windows Explorer, we can find our certificate file under Downloads. We continue now with SICAM Grid Pass to also download the root certificate of the certification authority. In SICAM Grid Pass dashboard, we click now to certification authorities. Then we open the certification authorities, and then we click here to export, to download, and the download windows appear. And here we select here as a PEM file. With the PEM file, there is no PIN required actually. And now we can create the certificate with the next button. And now we have the CA root certificate and the ESD client certificate. And now let's move on to the next step. And after creation and download of the ESD client and CA root certificate, let's start with the next step. Configure SICAM A8000 with CA root certificate and ESD client certificate to receive an MMS certificate via EST. Let's now move to SICAM Device Manager and then to SICAM Web. From SICAM Device Manager, we can enter now with SICAM Web to the certificate area. In SICAM Device Manager, in SICAM Web, we have to log in, and then we can now, in SICAM Web dashboard, we have to push the button Create Certificates here now. To load the ESD client certificate, click to button Certificates and Keys, and then click to the Add button to upload the certificates, and the certificate windows appear. Select here certificate number 1. This is just a placeholder for the certificate. Click Select File, and File Explorer field appears from where you can select and open this client P12 file. The P12 file is now in the upload field, and click the OK button to load the file. Under Certificates and Keys, we can find the certificate file now. When we open the certificate, we can find more details. So now let's continue to load the CA root certificate. In SICAM Web Dashboard, click the button Certificates. Click to load the CA root certificate to button Certificate Authorities. Then click to the Add button to upload the certificate. And now a field appears. And here we can select authority, certificate authority number 1. This is again just a placeholder to load this certificate. Click to select a file, and then an Explorer field opens from where you can select and open the CA PEM file. So then the PEM file is now in the upload field, and then we can click to open the file and load the file. So under Certificate Authorities, we can now find this root certificate. And when we open the certificate, we can find more details on the CA root certificate. So let us pause for a moment. And now we are loading the certificates, and this is now finished. And now we can continue with the configuration of EST in SICAM A8000 to receive now the MMS server certificate in SICAM Device Manager. So to do this, we come to SICAM Device Manager dashboard and we select Security. We actually configure here the EST server from which we receive certificates automatically. So go now here to Public Key Infrastructure and open Remote Certificate Request. Then we press here this Add button, and the LAN interface is open now here. So enter here now in this field the LAN interface for the communication network. So enter here also the IP address of this EST server, which is in our case also SICAM grid path. Now we select here the placeholder, which is Certificate Authority 1, where we have loaded this P12 file, and for this certificate file, this PEM file. So, and next, go on with the server services. And we are going back to the dashboard. So go back to the SICAM Device Manager main dashboard and further to communication to the server devices. We select here communication in the main dashboard. Here, click Server Services. So ensure also that this standard parameters field is now activated. So, and here, under HTTPS certificate, select now EST. Under assigned LAN interfaces, press now this Add button. And here again, the LAN interface for communication to the network appears and selected. So here now in the field HTTP or HTTPS, select HTTP for secure communication. And now finally we can save the configuration. So to upload the configuration now, go back to the dashboard and upload this configuration. And after restart of the RTU, we check in SICAM Device Web, in SICAM Web, the requested EST certificates. So now we are going back to SICAM Web. Continue slide 88. So in SICAM Web dashboard, we can click to the certificates button. To see the server certificate, go to requested EST certificates. So in SICAM Web, we can now see the certificate for the server. This is S number 1, which was provided now automatically via EST. So, and also we have received a new EST client certificate. Now let's go back to our overview to see the practical part, the next step. After step 2, we can now continue with step number 3. And here we configure SICAM A8000 as IEC 61850 server for the MMS connection according to IEC 62351. So let's go to SICAM Device Manager. In the dashboard of SICAM Device Manager, select RTU settings. In the dashboard of CP8050-101 RTU settings, click to open CP8050-101 and Central Processing M. So, and under Protocol 1, select IEC 62351-3-4. Select now here server encryption as encrypted. Select in the next field server MMS certificate and here insert EST. Select in CA server EST as well. And also in server CA EST. So, and now this MMS server setting is finished and we can continue to upload the configuration to the RTU. We do this from the dashboard and upload the configuration. And now we are ready with the SICAM A8000 configuration and continue now with SICAM PAS. So coming back to our practical example, we now configure SICAM PAS with CA root certificate and EST client certificate to receive MMS client certificate automatically via EST. So let's go to SICAM PAS UI configuration. To configure EST transmission parameters in SICAM PAS, go to SICAM PAS UI and configuration under templates. So click to EST communication. In transmission parameters, insert IP address of grid path EST server and the port 8050 for EST. And this port was chosen by grid path admin at the installation of grid path. So let's continue to load the certificate, the EST client certificate. So double click to client certificate and the certificate manager window appears. Click to the add button here and the file explorer appears. And click to this selected ESD client certificate. Click to open. The certificate is now in the certificate manager, and we actually use the same client certificate which was previously used also for SICAM A8000 as a certificate, but it does not matter because we get an automatically sent new one. And now we click to confirm, and now the certificate is loaded. So let's now also load the CA root certificate. We click to the load CA root certificate. We do a double click. The certificate manager opens. We click here again, the add button. The file explorer opens, and we select here this PEM file which we created. We click to open, and now we can see the file in the certificate manager. We click to confirm, and we load the certificate. Now we can configure ESD for SICAM pass. So here we presume that the SICAM A8000 IID file for RTU 61850 server 1 was already loaded. To configure TLS encryption in SICAM pass UI, go to the configuration tab. We follow the tree down to the ISC 6150 client interface, and now we open the security TLS encryption field. Under activate TSL encryption, you can select TSL using ESD or TSL using a profile using ESD communication. For SICAM A8000, we select TSL and a profile using ESD communication. Then we select here also the key algorithm, which is an RSA 2048, which was used to create the certificates. With these settings, you are prepared in SICAM pass to send a certificate signing request via ESD to PKI, to the PKI SICAM grid path. And now you are ready with loading the certificates and the ESD configuration, and you can move to the next step. We are coming back to our practical example here. And the next step is now establish a secured MMS connection between SICAM A8000 and SICAM pass according to ISC 62351-3. So let's log on again to Siemens pass UI configuration. So here, follow the tree down and click to RTU 6150 server 1 and open general parameters. So let's check the communication parameters, this IP address, and here the IP address of our SICAM A8000. Let's now do a system update in SICAM pass UI operation. Open SICAM pass UI operation. Then we click to the button Update System and verify the SICAM parameters in the left menu. They must become green then. So going back to our practical example, we now can check the certificates and the connection. For automatic create of ESD certificates, we have to go to SICAM grid path. For certificate check, we have to go to SICAM grid path for the certificates, and in SICAM path, ask actually SICAM grid path to create a client certificate for ISC 61850 MMS, and the client certificate was provided actually via ESD. And now we can see here this created certificate. SICAM A8000 also asks SICAM grid path to create a server certificate for ISC 61850 MMS server certificate, and this was also provided by our EST. And this is now also seeable, can be also be seen. So now moving to SICAM Pass UI operation, we can see the handshake between MMS client and SICAM Pass and the MMS server. The SICAM A8000 is done and is successfully, and we can see this with the screen. And as a result, the ISC 61850 MMS messages are encrypted in a Wireshark trace where MMS structure can be downloaded. And this we can now show also in a practical example with my colleague François.
Oh, yes. So let us see that all this theory is also working. Okay, so now I'm back to my engineering PC, and also on this server I also have a SICAM Pass system installed. So, and this will be connected to our SICAM RTU. And for that, you know, maybe if you are using SICAM Pass, you have a so-called UI operation. And here we already have configured here as in SICAM Pass as a 16150 client. And under this client, we have an interface to the RTU, and we have the RTU, the SICAM CP8050 as a server. And so in the background, we have configured the systems that they have here. They are configured with a certificate. So this RTU will send a toggle message here under what I can see here under my value, SICAM Pass value viewer. And now if I start this connection, I can see that here the message sent from my RTU coming via 16150 is here received in my device. And if now a hacker wants to see this information between both systems, and if he will use here, for example, the Wireshark, he can start the Wireshark, but he only see here clear this toggle information. He will comes every second. But if you now here look here inside this information, he only sees that it's TLS, it's encrypted, and the application data, he cannot see nothing here. It's the message, what is sent every second is not really readable what kind of information it is. And that is magic behind TLS. So we have secured this with a certificate for the client and the server, and that we have done via EST. And only to see again what is here, how it was set from the CP8050 side, we have this so-called setting for EST, where we have created and assigned the certificate, what we create in SICAM Pass, SICAM Grid Pass, and the CA and the certificate is set here. And really, the device have sent a certificate signing request to our SICAM grid pass, and SICAM grid pass send back the two certificate for the EST secure MMS communication. Remember where we see that. That is under connecting here via LDAP. So under certificates, under certificate, we have the requested EST certificate. That are the both certificate was SICAM grid pass create for the CP8050 for the IC 6150 MMS communication. These two, the certificate are used for the MMS handshake to encrypt the communication. And clear on SICAM pass, we also have here our UI configuration where we can check again what that we have under templates. Here, configure the place where we put the certificates for the EST communication. It's under this structure, the EST communication is established with the SICAM grid pass, and we have to put here the certificates what have been created for the EST communication. And that both certificate will be used in the background and on configuration when we set here IC 6150 client. Here, the only thing what we have to do when the client server communicate is to set here under activate TLS encryption, select here TLS and a profile using EST and the key algorithm. And that's all. And then SICAM pass and CP8050 gets the certificate in the background via EST. And then your system is running.
Okay, thanks a lot, François. Great. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Okay, let's summarize some points what we have seen. Just a moment. Can I have slides? The next slide. Just a moment. Yeah. Okay. Good. Now we are back in the summary. Actually, what we have seen is the configuration is menu-driven. In SICAM Device Manager, in SICAM Grid Pass, and in SICAM Pass, and this is relatively straightforward. This is not a complicated command line setting. We have seen EST working for SICAM A8000, SICAM Pass, providing client server certificates for secure 61850 MMS communication. So the communication is encrypted also via TLS. So in summary, I hope we could give you a good idea about syslog, role-based access, and secure communication, and how straightforward it was to configure SICAM A8000, SICAM Device Manager, and SICAM Grid Pass. You have learned how TLS works. You have understanding of what needs to be configured. The demo also gave you an impression about the counterparty systems like syslog server, like Active Directory, and how to create and manage certificates with our SICAM Grid Pass. And with our SICAM A8000, we have here really a peace of mind, a best-in-class cybersecurity here. Thank you very much so far. And now we are moving to the question and answers part.
Yeah, once again, you're not yet done,
Yeah.
And we still have a lot of time for questions. And that's perfect because we still have a lot of questions. So No chance for a break right now.
Yeah.
So, and LK wanted to know, where in the device manager can the syslog completely be deactivated?
We have to, in the menu, there was one point where syslog is deactivated. We have to go back to the slides, maybe. Maybe I will answer this in the answer questions.
Yeah, in a written format.
At the same place where we activate, we can deactivate.
And then you will show where it is.
But I will answer the question again.
Yeah. And then next question, is TLS also possible with OPC UA?
Yes, I mean, GridPass is supporting OPC UA. And I mean, if TS, this I have to look up also, if there is a TSL connection. Yeah. But no. OPC UA is possible.
Okay. So you will get a more comprehensive answer in the list that will be distributed later. And give him a few days.
Maybe to this question. The question was if TLS is also working with OPC UA.
Is TLS possible with OPC UA?
OPC UA is a protocol what is normally not encrypted. And if OPC UA is also encrypted, maybe, but it's not part of the recommendation what we have for the IEC 62351.
Oh, okay.
It's not part of this protocol, is not defined there how to secure them. So the IEC 62351 is a focus on the protocol what are used in electrical substations, or like the T104 protocol, IEC 16150, or GNP. So all the other big number of protocols that are also maybe possible in some context, they are not part of this recommendation or the focus on the IEC.
Oh, okay.
So maybe it's possible, but not with the same focus as what is where we try to get interoperability with security.
Okay. Oh. My microphone is off.
Okay.
I know.
So maybe we can read the next one.
Maybe like this. Now fine again. Let's get some hint from Regie. Yeah, sounds better. No, it's easier if you understand the questions. The expert have the chance to read it, but if you can just hear it, you should be able to hear me. So thanks for the update there. And TZ wants to know, what is the difference between Radius and LDAP, and what is your recommendation?
I mean, a Radius is typically some LDAP protocol. But you cannot use certificates here, and this is a big advantage of LDAP actually. And certificates increase this security quite a lot. Yeah? We have this really secure, and that's why it is LDAP is a recommendation. It's recommended. Sure, when your systems does not support LDAP, Radius is also possible, but then you have not the advantages of our GridPass and all these secure certificates. Our recommendation is LDAP.
So, thank you. That was an interrupt from.
No problem.
And then back to the questions. PS wants to know, can you interact with a SICAM device manager by means of an API?
Yes, an API, this is an application programming interface. By means of SNMP, it is maybe possible, but this I also need to look up. This is really a question which goes more into the deep. We will answer this question also in the...
They have to be precise what we want to do with this API, because it's API and device manager.
Yeah.
It's not here to do what.
Yeah, maybe it's even a 101 discussion to get this answer correctly.
Yeah.
All right, thanks, or correct. PK wants to know, how do I get this IEC 62351 folder into the Active Directory?
Yes, I mean, this is quite easily to open such an organizational unit in Active Directory. You can make a mouse button, click the new one, and then you can select Active Directory organizational units and open this. Typically, this is done by an administrator of this Active Directory. Here you can then create this organizational unit file and directory. But nevertheless, when you don't know how, we can also show you. But this is, please go in contact with the email with myself, and then I can give you more information how to create this folder.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And EK wants to know, is it possible to manage the credentials of a local user on the A8000 from a central system? For example, change the password each month.
No, so the local user is you change the password locally.
Okay, so no chance from remote. And can I somehow set a rule locally? That question.
Yeah, no, we can show where to set this user locally. Yeah.
So you will,
when you log to the device, then you can add as admin. When you have the administration rights, you can add a user.
Oh, okay.
And change the password.
And then IM wants to know, should we import to the A8000 or device manager the same certificate that we use for AD, Active Directory? Is it possible to configure LDAPs without certificate?
For the Active Directory, we use a certificate for the LDAP server. So we create a certificate as from type TLS server. Mm-hmm. Or it's also possible to use it somewhere in the A1000 for a server protocol. Well, why not? But it's getting
not
contact
really clear,
what is really requested.
So that's the invitation to contact you directly and get this question better, to understand it better, and then give a founded answer. Thanks. So next one, PP wants to know, since the release of Device Manager, it's possible to change the configuration of an A8000 from both places, from SDM and from the web page. How to configure the web access to be read-only? Oh, now we're talking about the web UI, the web access. Not really a security feature, right?
Web access. This we have to look up. I don't know right now. We answer this after the session. We have to look up in the manuals, and I don't know how, but we have to look up this in the manual.
So within the course of the webinar, the questions become really, really down to the system. And I know you will find the answer, and that's why I'm so glad that we have this instrument of you placing the question, and you will do your homework and answer all those questions. And it shows that we invited the right people to this webinar because they really have interesting questions. Thanks a lot for them. And we continue and see if you find more answers. Is it still possible to log in with a local user if we have access to Active Directory?
No. No, that's the clue is that if you have an Active Directory, you have to log with a central user. The local user is only when you do not have an access.
It's just the backup, right? And I think that brings us to the next question, because ST wants to know, can you clarify the local fallback users functionality? Are these only available if the LDAP server is not reachable?
Yes, the local are only used if the Active Directory is not reachable.
Okay, and what can a local user do? So because there's the question of the functionality of the local fallback user.
Local user, when you create a local user, you can also select the role according to IEC 62351-8. So depends on the role. You have the permission to do some activities. Depends on the role.
Okay. Yeah.
And in the manual, you have a table with corresponding roles. What kind of privilege, what kind of permissions they have.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Next question came in from Vienne, and Vienne wants to know, is it possible to install a third-party anti-malware software in the AR8000 RTU?
Well, this is a completely other question, but no. The A1000 RTU is it's an embedded Linux system where only the part what are necessary there is installed, and so you cannot install an anti-malware for Linux system on this.
Nothing
on this
open
box.
here.
No.
Yeah.
And
a lot of functions that we can enable.
Yeah,
but
here it's not an open system. It's an embedded system created only for this. For this task, and the approach is that, and if you want to put some other firmware inside, it's not possible because the firmware where we can load to the device, they are signed with a Siemens internal certificate, and so you not another piece of software can be loaded to this device if they are not validated and signed by us.
So it's kind of anti-malware protected, just because it is like it is, configured like it is. It comes with this protection.
With the signed firmware, it is already malware protected.
Yeah.
So you do not have to add another one.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Thank you. And then VKS wants to know, can we use any syslogging software, for example, like Kiwi Syslog?
Yes.
Okay, that was an easy answer.
Yeah, Syslog is a quasi standard, so every kind of Syslog server can read easily Syslog message. It's not a really complicated protocol. It's the text structure and all that is really easy, and that is why you can use any kind of Syslog server.
Let's say almost any kind, right? Just to be. And I think we had a similar question already, but it's nevertheless, it stays interesting and important. A wants to know, when we lose the SICAM grid path server from the network due to any kind of failure, will the CProtect 5 devices not give access over Dixie 5, even at emergency requirements?
I think it's that kind of a question I get in the last month in the CProtect 5 webinar. And yes, if you have if you lose your SICAM grid path server, if you use your Active Directory, it's not the grid path server, it's the Active Directory. So you have I think you are mixing a little bit the two part of LDAP and something with emergency requirement.
So it will be a written answer to get all of the portions of it right.
I have to take some assumption and to respond to this question.
And respond to the assumption, And then recertification question. WS wants to know, is there a way to automate the certification generation in SICAM grid paths? Or is it mandatory to manually create them every time that a certificate expires? I hope not.
This is one of the big advantages of SICAM grid paths. We can use here this EST, enrollment via secure transport, to renew automatically and transport also automatically the certificate down to the device. So in this case, you don't have to send anybody to substation for certificate renewal. And this is done automatically by SICAM GridPass via EST, and also GridPass also understands a SCAC protocol, simple certificate enrollment protocol. When you have routers in somewhere in your network, this will also transport automatically certificates down to this routers and switches where you can install certificates. So, and this is one of the really big advantages of SICAM GridPass, to have an automatic mechanisms to generate and also to transport certificates down to the devices.
Kind of always up to date,
Right,
just
yeah.
lean back and do something different.
Yeah.
Perfect. And then we had this configuration with a DI, the digital input to syslog, for example, the open door.
Right.
Is that also possible with a CProtect 5?
Yes.
Okay, that was once again easy.
Maybe let me add to this question
Yes.
also, because in A8000 it is possible now with a new software. And here with a new software which comes out in March now somewhere, we can now make automatic contacts which we can bring to syslog then also, to syslog server.
Sounds like a great improvement.
Right, this is very convenient.
Thank you. All right, let's take the last two questions, I think. Are there any training videos about creating certificates via GridPass available? I think we do have some, right?
Right, and we showed this also.
Yeah, showed it here, so it's part of this webinar.
Yes, webinar.
I think you also created some certificates in the first webinar, right?
Yes.
So there's another recording, and you might also find something which is dedicated just for GridPass and not this whole cybersecurity topic. I'm not sure about that. But now, GridPass permanently available. We already had that. And yeah, last question came in from ST. A worry from more traditional engineers. I think you cannot yet see it. It's one or two up there. So if you scroll a bit here in the regie, that will help my experts. Yes, there it comes. The one where we ST. A worry from more traditional engineers is that adding security and encryption will make the system dependent on new servers. GridPass, LDAP, similar. If all this infrastructure is unavailable for some reason, can we fall back to local credential safety without the loss of availability?
Yes.
Clear answer is yes, right?
Yes.
That was a long question and nevertheless a short answer. So thanks a lot for your active participation. We will close this webinar for now. I think you have almost 3 hours listening time with us, and I thank you so much for staying in the line, for bringing all of your valuable questions to you out here. Yes, you will do get access to the presentation. You will do get access to the recording, and in a few days, allow for some time for them, because I think it was once again more than 100 of questions. They will do their homework, those two experts, and yeah, Georg and François, you will do. I already know that François did a great job the last time with all of your questions and answers to them. So thanks a lot for taking part. You will receive more information from us. I think by now you've seen the benefits of a secure substation, and hopefully you get now a better understanding of the architecture of such a substation, which shall be secure and secured by systems like cybersecurity with GridPass on the SICAM A8000. And yes, there comes this nice info from the regie again. If you want to train more, if you want to learn more, work on a SICAM A8000, work on a Dixie device, do your own configurations and your cybersecurity settings. Just visit the Siemens Power Academy and train yourself there. I think it will also be part of the distributed links. So thanks a lot, And I'm looking to see you again in one of the next electrification and automation webinars. Stay secure, take care, and goodbye for now.
Bye-bye.